It's the year 2020, and if you were to walk into any grocery store, you would be completely bombarded with labels. So in today's video, we're going to cover exactly that. All of the food labeling that you see on those packages, and well, quite frankly, what they really mean. If you're new here, hello, my name is Jessica, and I'm a holistic nutritionist, and here on my channel, we focus on all things healthy living, whether that's everyday mom life, whether that's cooking or cleaning, and anything from your day to day. But everything we do here on my channel does have a bit of a healthy twist, as I am a nutritional practitioner. So if that seems like something that you might be interested in, I would love it if you would take 2 seconds and hit that big red subscribe button right here in the description box down below. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some of these very popular food labels. Grocery shopping can be extremely overwhelming. Foods are often packaged with a beautiful array of labels, and sometimes the word healthy or healthy sounding labels are plastered all over these foods. But how do you know if those labels actually mean anything? And we're gonna cover all of that and cut through all of the confusion in today's video. We all have a right to know what's in our food, how it's produced, and where it's from. But food companies are often not required to give us the full scope and all of the information that we want to know. The current rules on food labeling leave a lot of room for vague claims and make it difficult to differentiate between healthy foods and foods that may not show us the full scope of what's being put in the package. So arguably, there's a lot of greenwashing that goes on in the grocery stores today. As a result of the array of labels, whether it be on meat, milk, eggs, and packaged foods, it can be extremely overwhelming. I hope that the information we're going to cover today will guide you in the right direction. So here's an example to get us started. There's things like all natural, pesticide free, and no antibiotics. In some cases, those labels are 100% accurate, but we can't be sure that those claims are 100% fact unless there's a seal. Something like the USDA organic seal that regulates based on the federal government, and it's highly comprehensive. So speaking of the USDA seal, let's go ahead and get started there. Certified organic. Right now, this is the most meaningful label on all of your foods in terms of upholding specific government requirements. So for the products that fall within this category, it is 100% required that they meet the following standards. The first being organic crops cannot be grown with synthetic fertilizers, synthetic pesticides, or sewage sludge. That's right, you heard me right. Non-organic produce and crops can be grown with all of those practices. The next thing that they have to uphold is organic crops cannot be genetically engineered. Don't worry, we'll get to GMOs next. The next practice is animals must only eat organically grown feed without any animal byproducts and cannot be treated with any synthetic hormones or antibiotics. A huge bonus if you're eating animal products. Another thing with animals is they must have access to the outdoors. So this is huge. We want our animals to be outdoors, getting sunlight, and in an environment, well, where they were meant to be. And lastly is that the animals can't be cloned. So any USDA organic animal products cannot be that of which was from a cloned animal. I'll repeat that again, a cloned animal. So by now, just covering the first label, I think you can probably see that farming and food practices have definitely changed within the last 2 decades dramatically. So these labels do mean something nowadays, and I think it's really important that we educate ourselves before we consume any products that we're unsure of where and how our ingredients were sourced. Let's jump into my second label, which you've probably heard a lot of, and that's non-GMO. So a GMO is a genetically modified organism, whether it's a plant, an animal, a microorganism. The makeup has been modified in a laboratory using genetic engineering. This creates combinations of plants and animals and viral genes that do not occur in nature or through even traditional crossbreeding methods. Most GMOs have been engineered to withstand direct application of herbicides or pesticides or insecticides. However, new technologies are now being used to develop traits in plants such as resistance to browning in an apple and creating organisms that synthetically don't exist in these plants' biology. So you could see that an apple is meant to brown after a specific period of time. So changing the biology of that apple, I don't know if that's such a good thing if we want to be messing with nature in that capacity. So are GMOs safe? Well, the absence of credible, independent, long-term studies simply does not exist. So this is unknown. However, increasingly citizens like yourselves are taking matters into their own hands and choosing to opt out of being part of, well, the GMO experiment, if you ask me. So GMOs are currently not labeled in the United States by practice. However, there are definitely some companies and organizations who are taking it upon themselves to label their packages in order to let the consumers know whether or not they do use GMO products. In my humble opinion, at the end of the day, we have the right to know what's in our food, and then we can make a conscious choice on whether or not we want to consume it. So that's my stance on GMOs. And so I'm gonna move into all natural or 100% natural. This label occurs on a diverse range of foods, whether it's peanut butter or cereal or even sodas. So it may bring to mind the images of wholesome or minimally processed, for example. However, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, is responsible for regulating and supervising food production, and they do not define or regulate the use of natural on any food products. So without a formal definition of what natural means in the FDA, let's examine what this label does not mean. First of all, foods containing things like natural flavors, sweeteners, and other plant-derived substances can be labeled as a natural food. Foods containing highly processed fructose, like high fructose corn syrup, can also be labeled as a natural food, since the synthetic materials in high fructose corn syrup are not incorporated in the final product. So finally, food containing things like GMOs, which we just covered, can also be labeled as natural. This is far from an exhausted list of what could be in a natural food. However, I do hope that this gives you a different vantage point while you're grocery shopping. Our next label is cage-free eggs. So cage-free means that the birds are raised without cages, but it tells you nothing about any of their other living conditions. For example, cage-free eggs could come from birds raised indoors in overcrowded spaces in large factory farms. So cage-free doesn't mean that they are. Our next label, which is pasture-raised or pastured, meaning that the animals did at least spend some time in a pasture, hopefully feeding on some grass or forage. This traditional farming method is typically done with a smaller scale rather than big conventional farmed animals. However, there are no government standards on this current label, including how much of that animal's life actually spent outdoors on that pasture. But when searching for foods, whether it be eggs or meat, I am always conscious ensuring that my animals spend time outdoors. Many of the foods you will find are USDA organic and pasture raised. So that's something that is important to me and my family. The next very popular food label that you've probably seen popping up over and over again is grass-fed. So after weaning, an animal's primary source of food, well, comes from grass rather than corns or grain. There is not, unfortunately, a uniform government standard on this label, although some companies submit their own standards to the USDA so they can put a grass-fed claim on their products confidently, and some third-party certifications also use a grass-fed claim. This is definitely a separate entity than hormones and antibiotics. However, if your grass-fed animal is also USDA organic, you can rest assured that they weren't given any of those synthetic hormones or antibiotics. Bottom line, now that you've watched this video, you've done your homework, and now you understand what these labels really mean. You know which ones, well, are meaningful to you and your family, and how that may impact your purchasing decisions the next time you're at the grocery store. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do food labels mean to you and your family, and which ones are you conscious of that you try your best when the opportunity arises to purchase these specific labels. Thank you again for watching, and if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and then be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's right over here on the screen. That way you don't miss a single video, and I hope to see you back here next Thursday.